So as a double check, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we wasted quite a lot of time. We have about 1.5 hours to go. So I'm going to sort of just dive straight into it. For this session, I sort of prepared a PowerPoint presentation, which is going to sort of help us understand what you're going to go through. Because for the most of the afternoon, we're going to do a lot of the practical. I know the previous sessions, you've done online instruction, you've done online etiquette, course design, you've had some tutorials in the learning management systems, how to manipulate this and that, how to upload content. So I sort of want to go back to that. We're simply going to go to the next step, which is digital content design. You already know how the learning management system works. So here's what we're going to study today. The very first thing is an introduction to e-content, or the digital content. So there are a number of formats out there that you probably already know about, so we won't waste so much time on that. However, I think what we'd be most interested in is how we can get these various digital content types, combine them to make a meaningful message to help us effectively pass on knowledge in the digital setting. Okay, so as you know, the digital setting is quite different from the traditional classroom. Everything that you're going to do, everything that you're going to instruct to our learners is more or less going to be passed on digitally over the internet, over shared media, and things like that. We're also going to look at digital design tools. So there are a number of tools that we use to design some of these digital content types that we're going to see. And then lastly, we also look at the principles of design. So when we get to these principles of design, you come to understand that sometimes just because you know how to do doesn't necessarily mean Okay, let me increase my volume a bit. I hope everyone can hear me now. Give me a second. Is my audio better now? Okay, so I'll just go right ahead. And like I was saying, lastly, we'll have to look at the principles of design. So these design principles will sort of guide us on how to design. I know not all of us are artists, not all of us are designers, but when you're designing this, when it comes to digital content design, you need to have that some artistic style to it. You need to portray information in a visually appealing way to the instructor, to the learner, such that they understand exactly what you want. You don't want to distract learners, you don't want to give them too much information, and yet, maybe the focus is on something small. You don't want to just throw information all over the place that students are going to take a very long time to understand just one simple concept. So let's dive straight into the very first subject of the day, introduction to digital design. Now, finding the best way to deliver your content and get your students to understand in a traditional face-to-face teaching environment can be challenging. But doing that in an online setting is even more challenging. Okay? So, like we already know, students have different learning styles. You could have 30 or more students online accessing the learning content, your learning material, but some are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some are read and write learners, some are, kinesthetic learners, the ones who learn by doing. So you need to sort of organize your content in such a way that each of these learners, regardless of the learning style that they're most used to, can pick out something from what it is that you're delivering. So the commonest e-content types are text, images, graphics, audio, and video. Like I said, I know most of us already know this kind of these content types, so I'll just simply rush through this next part so that we can go to the more important bit of this presentation. So the text is by far the most common type. Of course, with that you already know the common file types are text files, PDFs. This is where you have your Word documents, you have your maybe PDF editors, Microsoft Word, Google Docs, that kind of thing. I'm sure you already are used to this. This is just an example of a PDF file that is uploaded to a digital to a learning management system. The next content type is images. Now these can also be created. You could use a camera, take pictures here and there. You could download them over the internet. However, one challenge with these is sometimes too much of anything is bad. So you need to get the most appropriate picture when you want to deliver online content. If you're talking about, for instance, on this right here, we have a bee on a flower. This could be, somewhere along maybe pollination. And you're trying to show that there is pollinating agents that sort of, visit flowers, pull the pollen from the anther to the stigma, blah, 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 things like that. And in this case, at least someone can get a feel of an insect doing exactly what it is you're talking about. Now, one issue you should always look out for when using these images, especially when you're doing online instruction, is you could get copyright issues. And the reason for this is if you intellectual property rights, sometimes when people take these pictures, of course, they have rights to them, so they sort of don't always want people to simply get them for free because they lose money by doing that. So over here, I've gotten you some few websites, about 2 of them that are a great source of royalty-free pictures. Now, royalty-free basically means images that are not licensed, images that you can pick and use without necessarily having to pay for them or paying a license or have to worry about any of the lawsuits and things like that. This may not matter if you're instructing, people in a small setting, but if you're doing it at an international level, you don't want to go to a presentation and then, use a picture and the photographer sees it. Next thing you know, your whole institution is in law, sorry, in court, because of just a small mistake. Now, the common file types are the JPEG. This is the commonest. You have PNGs, you have SVGs, and GIFs. On to the next one, graphics. Now, graphics should not be confused with images. Images are usually just picked in their raw form. It could be from a camera, from a scanner, things like that. However, graphics are those which are created by manipulating either cell lines, drawings. You could use a computer, or another smart device to create graphics. Now, common examples could be charts, flow charts, flow diagrams. You have the 3D designs, you have 2D designs. You can see some of this, the drawing here going on. For this, of course, you need design tools, things like Adobe Illustrator, things like Photoshop, things like Inkscape, GIMP. These are the tools that are going to help you create these graphics. And like you've seen in the previous presentations, graphics are a very good way to present information, especially if you're doing it digitally. So if you're teaching online, what our boss, Professor Vega, likes to tell us is use more pictures and use less words. Let the picture tell the story. In this case, if you're teaching some people about a process flow or a hierarchy in an organization, you don't necessarily have to write paragraphs of text. Simply go, if you're using a PowerPoint, you could go to design, get a smart object, choose what you exactly want. If you want a hierarchy, use a hierarchy. If you want to have, let's say, a process or a flow diagram, you choose the most appropriate graphic, fill it, have it follow the theme, and make it explain exactly what you're trying to teach. So give me a second. I've been informed my audio isn't really good, so I'm going to sort of try to join from another device so that we don't really lose out. So my apologies for that. Is everything clear now? Is this better?
Excellent.
Okay. Perfect. So it is really embarrassing that I'm teaching people about multimedia and my audio is bad. But let's carry on. So I think I was talking about the graphics, which is it should not be confused with the images. Graphics are literally, they're digitally drawn, and these are representations of information. A common example I was giving you was charts, flow diagrams, infographics, 2D and 3D elements, and things like that. And some of these, like I was saying, are drawn using specialized software. This could be things like Adobe Illustrator, things like Inkscape, things like GIMP. For our next session, I've prepared a set of links that we're going to use that sort of show you some of these open source tools and where we can download them from, and then also use them to sort of go through some of these, how to create some of these content types. So the next is the one that has actually been disturbing me, which is audio. So of late, podcasts are becoming increasingly popular for things like events, for classrooms, especially because they sort of cater for, visual learners, audio learners, and sometimes, you just feel like it is better to explain something in your own words. So if you're, for example, teaching using a PowerPoint presentation and you get to a point somewhere, okay, and maybe you've put together this content, but you feel that you need that extra touch. But then again, following the design principles, you don't want the slide to be overly crowded. So what you could do is simply add, a sound clip, something like this. In addition to the above, teachers can record and post audio files within text or image content. You can explain the note or a little concept in a short audio clip and then upload it for your students. You can also find relevant podcasts and share them with your students. Audio and voice notes should be as short as possible. This will better ensure that your students don't drift off while listening. Okay, so that's just a sample I made, but you could do something much, much better, something that explains the entire slide. Don't fear your voice. Usually for people who start creating the podcast for the first time, it sounds unusual for the first time, but you get confident and the process becomes easier as you create more of these. The commonest file types are MP3 and then .wav, which is WAV. But my advice to you is to always use MP3s. Is that okay? I think it's not with us. So the reason we are going for MP3s is, as you will learn that in these content types, you have lossless format and you also have these other compressed formats. Now, the lossless format are usually the high-end, the really clear formats of these content types. So for example, the audio that you send in the studio, the videos that you play on TV adverts, the things you send out there, those are really high-end. However, if you're using this digital content and you want it uploaded onto a learning management system, you want it to be as light as possible. So an MP3 is sort of like the compressed audio type that is really convenient for this online learning management system. Reason being is you could have, for example, this was 20 seconds, but in reality, this size was something like 30 kilobytes. So you could have a session of 5 minutes of you talking, explaining things, and in the end, you find the entire thing is just, maybe 10 MBs, which is really convenient, especially if students have to share this content digitally, through WhatsApp, through the learning management system, through email, and things of the sort. And the next content types are videos or animations. Now, this is the next step. They sort of take on both the visual and audio content types and merge them into, a video. Now, you could have recorded classes like the one on the side, just going to play in a bit. You could have video tutorials. You could have whiteboard animation. So for today's session, we're going to look at whiteboard animations. I think this will be done in the afternoon, the late afternoon. Then also, I'm going to sort of show you how to make some kind of recorded class. So in this case, we are going to use a PowerPoint presentation and then also have a screen recording. We could record the screen, we have your voice over it, And then you combine these, and this is something that you'll upload to the learning management system. So your students will be able to, look at the content that is being presented to them in the PowerPoint slides, but also hear the explanation behind it to give it, in-depth explanation and to help them understand these things much better. Now, some of these editing tools out there are things like Adobe After Effects, Shortcuts. Some of these are, open source, which means they're free to use without necessarily paying for the license. And others are, these industry standards like the Adobe Suite. Most of those you have to buy. Now, a great source of educational videos is YouTube. With YouTube, you'll find a multitude of tutorials. You'll find tutorials on management, on IT, on education, on medicine, on literally anything. The only, of course, disadvantage is there are so many of them. Everyone these days can create their own educational video tutorial. So you sort of have to go through a number of them before you can get to something which is just perfect for your learners. And like I said before, we have these file types. So the ones I recommend for you are MP4 and then MOV. So MP4, of course, this is the commonest. It plays across browsers, it plays on your gadgets, on phones, on tablets, and computers, and all. MOV is especially for those who are into the Mac world. If you're into iPhones, iPads, things like that. It's also convenient for them. However, I would always prefer that you use MP4s. So now that we're done with the data types, we are going to look at now multimedia. So from this slide, you can see that multimedia. It's taking a bit time to switch. Okay, there we go. So multimedia is a combination of the above data types. What we talked about, the text, the audio, the animation, the video. You just get all these things, bring them together, using any of these the digital tools we talked about, the Photoshop, Illustrator, GIMP. You sort of get all those, manipulate them, and then create one file type. Okay, so it is this content type that usually you present to a learner, and from this content type, learners can sort of understand exactly whatever it is you want them to teach. So multimedia is interactive as opposed to traditional mass media. And by this, I mean, traditionally, if they give you a newspaper, all you can do is read, okay? But with multimedia, you should be able to sort of interact. You can forward, you can go back, you can click, you can move, you can ask, you can, that kind of thing. And that's exactly what you need in a digital setting. So it is categorized into linear media content and also non-linear media content. With the linear media content, that's what I talked about previously, kind of like the traditional mass media, where you have no navigational control. You simply sit. An example is the cinema setting. You sit and watch, or some churches, you have no control over what the preacher is saying. You have no control over what is being shown to you in a cinema. You cannot forward, you cannot rewind. You simply watch and everything moves on. Now, what we should be aiming for is the non-linear media content. Because with this, you want to have interactivity to help provide some sort of control for the learner. So if, for example, you have a video tutorial or a podcast, someone can rewind and say, I didn't understand that. Let me have a listen again. You rewind, you listen to that, or you forward, or you click a link, someone takes you to something else. That's the kind of interactivity that we need, the kind of interactivity that makes sense if you're teaching someone online. You can see here you have examples, the recorded classes are talking about tutorials, hypermedia. Now, hypermedia refers to sort of a combination of the traditional, the digital content type that I was talking about, and then with some sort of hyperlinks. So hyperlinks are simply actions which take you from one point to another, I could say. So for example, when you're on the internet and you click a link, it will take you to a web page. If you're in a PDF and you click a button, it will take you to a certain page, or it will play an action. It could play sound, it could play a video, it could, change the color of something, it could make some, maybe a shape move, or change or something like that. So from here, I'm also now going to show you the tools that we are going to use to create the multimedia content that we're talking about. So there are quite a number. In here, I sort of tried to give you options, alternatives. Okay, so we have the open source, which is the free kind of tools that you can get without necessarily paying for their license. And then you also have the ones you see on the left are more like the industry standards. They are the heavyweights in the multimedia world. These are the tools that I use. These are the tools that I would want at least for your institutions to purchase, get licenses, because it will be much easier and much faster for you to create content using these. So, for example, for sound recording and editing, we are going to use Audacity. And this is something which we are going to do right now. So I don't know if any of you has been to the e-learning system. I left this presentation actually is already there, and I also included these links. So we're also going to share the links in the chat room so that you can pick them out, go to the sites and download them. I want to request my colleague to help me help show us how to go through this whole installation a bit, so that we don't waste a lot of time. But I'd also really love it that some of you install some of these tools. So for sound recording, I said we're going to use Audacity. For video, we are going to do a screen recording using Shortcut, which is a really nice open source tool. For image and graphics illustration, because of time, we may not venture much into this, but I'll also be able to share later some tutorials that will help you sort of understand, follow and learn how to use Photoshop and Illustrator. These, especially Photoshop, Illustrator, and Inkset. These are really, really great tools, especially if you want to go more into, creating these infographics that I was talking about. So you have a concept. Some of you are PhD fellows, some of you, are teaching master students and things like conceptualizing the work they're doing. You want to design a conceptual framework. How do you do it? Okay. Doing it in Illustrator would be a very, very fast and easy way and clean way to do it. We also have animation creation. We could use Adobe After Effects. We could use Blender. But again, for this session, we may not venture much into this. However, as a substitute for the animation, we are going to do whiteboard animations. So this will be in the afternoon session. Whiteboard animations have also become increasingly popular when it comes to digital, online instruction. Because with these whiteboard animations, they're very easy to create. You simply get images here and there, place them there, you record your voice over it, and then you sort of see them interact. So you're teaching someone about maybe the evolution of computing. You have one old computer come through the universe, and then, you sort of take them through the laptops and the tablets and, this other smartphones and things like that. But we shall look at that in the evening. So now I want to quickly, that's 9 minutes, I want to quickly run through the principles of design. I don't know who's annotating. To quickly look at the principles of design. So these are just a set of rules that designers can follow when creating a composition to create visually pleasing work. And the purpose of these rules is to deliver a message in the most organized and functional way. So you want your message to be delivered in its intended way, as opposed to, confusing the student, for example. Now I want you to have a look at this next slide. And I want you to think what the designer was thinking when he made this. Now the guy on the left creates a watering can, but I don't know if it's supposed to water plants or to water itself. And when you look on the right, you find this man who put urinals right next to each other. So this ideally would be serving two different people. But in this case, I don't know how that works. I don't know whether it is for someone who is you'll find that some of you design, I'm sure you've looked at people who have, we call them power notes instead of PowerPoint slides, where someone is trying to illustrate something, teach you, but the PowerPoint is full of like 8 different paragraphs. The fonts are so small, you cannot see a thing, you cannot understand what it is trying to explain to you, or maybe
he has images, but there are so many images, everything is distracting, or maybe it's to do with the colors and things like that. So these principles are sort of going to help us, to keep ourselves in check, to avoid making some unnecessary, some amateur mistakes when it comes to digital content design. And these are balance, proximity, alignment, repetition, contrast, and space. This is not an art class, so I don't want to go too much into this, but I also have a video over here. So when you get this PowerPoint presentation, just click that video. There's a video there that's going to sort of go in depth, teaching you about each of these. Now, the goal here is not to make you, learn all the theory relating to this, but it's simply to just give you some of these guidelines. So when you begin working, these things are going to sort of become part of you. You'll just know balance, for example, when you go to balance. Ideally, balance is to provide some kind of stability to a design. You don't want a design to be, to put too much content on one side and leave the other side empty, okay? You want a design, or it could be a screen, it could be a PowerPoint slide, whatever it is. It could even be a video if you're recording yourself, making a video. If you've got the equipment and you choose to make, a recorded class, you need to know exactly where to place yourself. So balance can be either symmetrical or asymmetrical. In this case, for instance, if you look at the slide that I've used here, you can see that it is sort of symmetrical, okay? So you have the image over here, I have the words over here. Again, even on this side, when you look at the spacing, you can see that, the space up here is balanced, it is equal to, the space just below there. So these principles help you, when you, for example, balance is one of the really, really, really important principles when it comes to design. You just automatically create nice content. On the other hand, for example, if I got this, let me first try to show you. If, for example, we did this, and then we bring, say, this over there, okay? It's not the same thing. Yes, you read the paragraph up here, but again, you're not really bringing out the balance. You're not bringing out exactly what you want the student to know. In this case, it is the reference point, which would be this. So at least placing it, to the left, placing the text to the right, having this occupy this whole space, it is sort of going to help to give a student a reference, a focal point to remember exactly what they were being taught in class. So when he thinks of balance, he's always going to remember this scale and then think, I need to keep things, on my scale at the same level. I cannot have one heavier than the other side. That kind of thing. We now go to proximity. So proximity also sort of provides a focal point to a design, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to put things together. It simply means that the things have to be visually connected. So, for example, in this case, you may want to illustrate something like, maybe the concept you're trying to teach requires some sort of categorization like this, okay? So in this case, you could say, maybe if you're doing machine learning and you're doing, let's say, the KNN model, you're looking at the nearest terms in a particular data set. So in this case, you can see that whatever is here on the left sort of symbolize the things which are together, and whatever is on the right are the outliers. I don't know if that's a very good example, but I'm sort of trying to show you that some elements in here should be visually connected with each other. But you're going to see that as we design the actual work later. The other is alignment. Now, this is it's a common but bad habit. When you have work organized like this, it's not visually appealing. You look at it, it's just not visually appealing. And sometimes when something doesn't appeal to you, you even lose the morale to understand or to carry on, to study whatever it is you're being taught. So I want to show you a difference, a quick difference. If I made everything here aligned, let me go just here. You see that? Give it a second. So we've already aligned it vertically. Now let us align it, let us distribute it vertically. Okay, so instantly, That looks much better than before. Okay, so we are aligning, but at the same time, we're recalling the principle of balance. And if we balance everything out, everything looks much better now. So if these were steps, you know, in a process flow somewhere, it would be much better this way than, you know, having things disorganized like this. I mean, even if you're not an artist, you know, you try to do something that's appealing. So that will take us to repetitions. So repetition helps to strengthen a design by tying these elements together. It could be, you know, by using, you know, the same shapes over time. It could be a repetition of colors. It could be a repetition of fonts. So this repetition sort of creates this consistency in your content design. And it's very important, for example, when it comes to PowerPoint slide design. You'll notice that each of my slides has the same fonts. You look at the headers, you'll notice that the colors are the same up here. And you'll also see that the colors that I used here are the same colors as those in the 8 concerts logo. Okay. So as you're doing this design, try to avoid having, you know, every slide look it's a totally different way from the previous one. Then we look at contrast. So contrast also sort of helps you to highlight, you know, major elements in a design or creates that sort of focus. So with this contrast, for example, if you look over here, if you have a dark background, at least, you know, put something with low values, put something with a light color. That way the focus is there and you're sort of creating this nice contrast. If you're working on something with a dark background, you know, use a dark object. That way you can now easily see it. It can stand out from the background and it is, you know, usually appealing. Avoid these things where you have yellow on orange, you have red on violet. There are those, you know, color clashes that should really be avoided. Okay, and one good website to help you avoid this is this color.adobe.com. Okay, so again, I've included this in the PowerPoint slides I shared. Let me see if it can open here so that I show you something. Okay, so it's taking a bit of time, but I really wanted to show you how you can use this website. It's color.adobe.com to come up with color combination that work. Okay, so with this website, it's going to help you avoid making these, you know, stupid, I call them stupid color choices. So for example, you know, you want to do something along and these are your theme colors. You know, I would want to use some red, I want to use this color, I want to use that color, I want to use this color, and then, you know, black, this is gray, light gray, and all. So when you use these colors in combination, at least the people who come up with these color themes or color palettes are really, you know, expert designers, and they know it is pretty hard for them to, you know, to clash, immediately because you see the contrast. So for example, you see cyan here, you see that that navy blue, you see this light yellow, the white and the gray. These contrast with each other and they contrast so well. So similarly, if you're creating a design, you want, for example, your headings to be, you know, navy blue. You want, you could use, you know, this light cyan background, you could use this yellow background, you could use the gray over here for, you know, subtopics and things like that. And even if you were to do, let's say, video recordings and all that, and you're mixing things up, it could also help you at least guide you on how to play around with your background. So you're going to record yourself. What are you going to wear? What background are you looking at? If you're looking at a white background or a yellow background, what color of shirt should you wear to help you better contrast with, you know, with the whole environment? Just get to this website, you know, browse through. You could explore, you could create your own theme. You could look at what people, designers out there have in stock for you to at least guide you through that. Okay. And then we're back here, and the last one is the contrast. So contrast, like no, not contrast, not contrast. This is space. This is space. So lately, one thing you should know, one thing, at least in the design world, is that less is more. Okay, we are moving, if you look at designs all over the world, be it in architecture, be it in landscape design, be it in interior design, we are moving towards a minimalistic approach to design. You want things to be, for example, let me give you an example. You look at this. So you have, let's say this is an A4 piece of paper, and you want to deliver some message, or you're creating a post about something, or an illustration, maybe a concept that you're teaching in class. One person would say, no, I want the main image here to be so big, and then squeeze the wordings down here below. So much as this would work, but it's not exactly the best way that you can actually represent this information. A better way to represent this information is to put into consideration the previous design principle, which is contrast, like here. So you have your focus, object, the main object, just around all this negative space, and then just put your other context, your other content just below it. It could either be on the right, on the left, low, but the whole point is just consider the space around these elements here. Okay, space your work. You don't always have to throw in all the content that you have from your PDF or from the website or whatever it is that you're thinking. Okay, like I said, try to balance out everything. So you could use, you could have a PowerPoint slide, then you add in your audio file, add like a podcast in there, or add a video in there, or use notes. Whatever you do, just do not crowd the slide you're using, or do not crowd the recording you're making. Basically, don't crowd anything. Just always remember, less is more. So, like I said earlier, I shared these links on the LMS. I think at this point, we're now going to go to the LMS and have a look at these. Let me see if they're shared in the chat room, because I would really want you people to at least download these and move with me. For the next 1 hour, we are going to just delve a little into how to make screen recordings and also how to make podcasts. So give me just a second when you check your, actually, thank you, Joseph. Let's say you're talking about nature, okay? So you could start a class, introduce yourself, talk about whatever it is you're talking. Then you could even have some nature, sounds like birds, chirping, or you could have water flowing and things like that. And you combine them and to sort of help this really, really nice podcast, which takes a student straight into the world that you want them to get into. So for starters, I'm going to, I don't know who keeps doing this. For starters, I'm going to go to audacity.com here. I already have this Audacity tool installed on my computer, but I'm simply going to show you how to get there, how to download it, how to install it. And hopefully one of you, at least one of you, could follow me through this, so that at the end of the day, we know that it's doable. But also, most importantly, we are going to have recordings of this, so you don't really have to, in case maybe you don't have good internet right now, or you're not using your computer and you're using a phone or any other mobile device, you don't have to worry about it. The moment you get a computer, you can always go to YouTube and pick these tutorials. So let me click here. I don't know if you can also. My resolution bit, it's pretty high. So if you're using a small device, a mobile device, I would suggest that you zoom in a bit to see exactly what I'm doing. So, there. Okay, perfect. So the beauty with Audacity is that at least it is cross-platform. So you have it in Windows, you have it in Mac OS. We also have it for people who are into the Linux world. What you do once you get to this site, of course, to get here, you're going to click the link. You can check the link that we've shared in the chat room. Then you'll click, I don't know what operating system you're using. I'm using Windows. So I'll click Audacity for Windows. As soon as you click there, it will take you to this other page. And on this page, your download will automatically start. So I'm using a download manager. I don't know if you see it. Download has already started. And when I click here, I see it's ready for my file. I don't know if any of you is following.
We are not seeing the file. Okay, good.
Do you see it?
Yes, now we see the download coming through.
Okay. So now, depending on the...
Yes, I can see it now.
Perfect. Depending on the download that you're using, okay, it may go into your downloads. So to do that, you'll simply go over here to the right, to the top right, click that hidden menu icon, click downloads. You'll be able to see some of the downloads on here. Okay, that is for you. But in my case, I'm using a download manager, which usually sends my files straight to this folder. Excuse me. I don't know if you see that. So if if you use IDM, if you use any other download manager, usually they'll go to downloads, compressed, then program. Or they may go to downloads, program. And when I say download, I mean you'll go to, if you're using Windows, of course I'm talking about Windows, click My PC. You could click just below here, downloads. You check your compressed either up here or in programs, depending again on what the downloader you're using. So if I was using the normal downloader, it would go here. But in my case, I have it, I just made a few configuration changes. So I have it on my E partition. So this is where the file is. So anyways, you just click enter, click this, which is yes. Choose the language. Of course, I'm imagining we all speak English. Then you'll click next. I hope I'm not too fast. And then you read through all these, click next. Choose the file where you want the installation. Click next. Now, because I've already installed this file, I don't want to repeat it. I may lose some work that I already had before. But from this point, you simply click next and then finish. Okay. And when you're done, let me just exit here. When you're done, you expect something like this. So I don't know who is at this point. I don't know whether I should carry on or I should wait for someone to at least, show me that we're on the same page. Has anyone successfully downloaded it?
Can I do the installation from screen?
I didn't get that. Yes, hello out there. Can I continue or should we at least get some person to go through the installation until this point? Because moving forward, whatever it is that you're going to do, I really wouldn't want to carry on as if you know, let me see. Okay, someone's requesting for the links to be pasted. Okay, I'm going to do that right now. So for those using computers, you can simply check the chat. You'll see those links. What you're looking for is the very first link, which is audacityteam.org/download. Again, is anyone successful? No, I don't know. I don't know if I'm alone. I don't know if I'm talking alone.
We are together, Seba.
Yep. Okay. So some people are saying I can carry on, and I think some are still downloading the file. So what I'm going to do is just I'll start by creating a simple podcast. So for this, as you'll see, this is the window. So on here is where you usually want to, let's scroll here just a bit. On here is where your sound clips are going to go. Up here, you find these are the different controls you have. These are some of the tools that you're going to have to use, to clip things here, to increase sound there, to make a few manipulations on the audio clips. Over here, you have the input selection. So here you will choose the microphone that you want to use. Okay. So if you're using a laptop, in most cases, your default microphone will come over here. You may not necessarily have to make any other adjustment. And what I'm going to show you here is how you can make this recording straight from the mic. So if you're using a laptop, you simply get to this point and then record. However, you could also record using a phone. So if, for example, your laptop has issues with the audio input or your microphone, or maybe it's a bit damaged and the sound isn't clear, what you can always do, like I sometimes do, just get to a quiet place, place your camera or place your phone a little distance away from your mouth, try to be audible, and then record yourself. So once you're done recording yourself, you can always pull that the sound clip and then dump it into this Audacity file here, and then you can also make the manipulations there. I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, I'm going to show you how to do it if you had your microphone working in the laptop, or if you have an external webcam, or if you have a headset connected to your computer. So the very first thing you want to do is to choose the input. So the right camera, the right microphone. In this case, I'm using a USB microphone. I've connected a webcam to it. So then you also want to choose the speaker that you're using over here. In this case, by default, I've not made any change, but if you're using, let's say, external headsets, if you're using Bluetooth, maybe speakers, and that is what you wish to hear the sound playback, you can always choose that. So what you want to look out for is this record button. This record button is more like, I think this is the international or the standard sign for this record. So for most of the tools that we'll be using, you will always interact with this, something red. So whether you're using Audacity, maybe Premiere Pro, After Effects, regardless of the tool you're using, in most cases, you'll see this. Okay, so let's make a sample. What I'm going to do, let me place this lower here. I click here, the recording starts. So I'll say, hello. My name is Collins Nwagaba. I'll be your instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here. It's a cold morning out here. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying Introduction to Machine Learning. Thank you. And then I'll click that. I'll click stop. Okay. So what you want to do now is just place this back. My class. Today we'll be studying Introduction to Machine Learning. Thank you.
Where did you click stop?
So you see the black square box?
Oh, okay, I've seen it. Thank you.
Okay, so at least I know I have someone with me. So when you play back, so you stop. If you want to play back, just simply move the cursor to any point. So you see, this is the timeline. This is from that, all the way up to this end. If you want to start playing the sound from any point, you'll simply click. Okay, you can just click here, go there, click here, go there, and then stop. Okay, if you want forward, you do that, takes you to the end. You want to go back to the beginning, you click that. If you want to play from using these keys, you can click play, and you can also pause. Okay. So some of these, you're used to these tools. If you've used, VLC, you've used media players or any, audio players, these tools are more like the same. Okay. So this is now just a rough file that I've made, and it's what we're going to use to sort of come up with the podcast that we're talking about. So the very first step is to acquire the audio clip, which we've talked about. You could either use your phone, you could use a sound recorder, you could use a computer, headset, whatever it is. The whole point is the audio file is just here. Similarly, if, on the other hand, I had, say, another soundtrack, okay? I had another voice recording. Okay. So let me get something from. Okay. So,
looking for a university to join? Introducing Combo University, a private chartered university that offers world-class education at all levels, including certificates, diplomas, bachelor's and master's degrees.
Did you get that?
Yes, we did.
Yes. So this is just another way you could do it. Okay, you could just simply get to a folder where your work is, click, drag, and then dump into the Audacity file. Okay, so what you do to avoid confusing, I'm going to first, remove this so that we go back to the original. Let me try to make this a bit to flow a bit better. So now we are back to this point. I hope everyone is here. Now, usually the first thing you want to do is you want to clean noise. So the place I'm at is pretty quiet, but sometimes, you know, you're working and there is maybe a fan in the background. You're working and there's some, you know, maybe cars moving around and they're making that background noise, which is a bit distracting. So usually what you want to do for that, you select a portion. Okay, you're going to first select a portion of your sound clip, which has the noise alone. Okay, so in my case, you hear something like, okay, that bit. I don't know if you hear it well, but there's that little bit of it's not really okay. It's not so loud, but there is a fan from a distance that is making some little noise there. So when you select that sound, you want to go to effect. You'll thereafter go to noise reduction. You click that, and then you click get noise profile. So essentially what we are doing is we are picking a bit of the noise such that we use that small clip and simply just go and subtract that sound from the original sound or from the other sound clip that we have. So any point in this sound clip that has that hum, you know, the hum in those first few seconds is going to be eliminated. So after getting the sound profile, what you want to do next is now highlight everything. Okay, so you can simply click and drag, or you could use Control A. You know, that's a default shortcut for selecting things after all. And then you want to go back to effect. You want to come down here to noise reduction. And then now you have some attributes here that you're going to play around with. You want to look at the noise reduction, the sensitivity, the frequency smoothing. So each of these sort of affects how much of the noise you're going to pull out from the original track. However, sometimes overly doing it is also going to now sort of reduce the quality of the sound, because sometimes, you know, some of the noise is a little bit loud in the sense that if you now compare it to if you subtract it from what you've recorded, you even lose out some of what you want. So in this case, let's preview. You just make a few adjustments here to the slider, and then you click preview.
The recording starts. So I'll say hello, hello, hello.
Okay. So you can increase, reduce some more.
The recording starts. So I'll say hello, hello, hello.
And that is much better. So now you can click. Okay. Once you do that, I don't know if you've noticed, there has been that reduction on some points here. So that reduction basically shows you that this noise that was there has been eliminated. Okay, and at least in our case, it has been eliminated well. We haven't lost so much of the original track. So once you have that covered, now you want to do some, you know, more cleaning. So for example, you'd want to remove unnecessary delays. You want to remove unnecessary repetitions. Let's have a listen here.
The recording starts. So I'll say.
So for instance,
So I'll say.
At this point, if you get this the zoom button and then you click there, it will zoom in. Okay. However, if you're using an external mouse, you can simply hold Control and then you know, scroll on that scroll button, either down or up. You can try it out. You'll see that you zoom in and zoom out. Okay. So once you're done with this, you want to go back to the selection tool. Now at this point, there is some unnecessary sound here, some sound that you don't really want. So to remove or to trim, you simply select that sound. Then you can hit delete on your keyboard. Okay. So if I hit delete, or if I clicked, you know, this cut, I want to use this cut in another part, you will see that whatever was there is just immediately going to disappear.
My name is Colin.
So, for example, I also don't like this whole first part because I repeated it. So in that case, I would simply select all of that and then go to this to cut. Like I said, you can do Control X, you can use delete, you can use this tool. It's really up to you. Personally, I prefer shortcuts, but I guess it's because I've been doing this for a long time. So, it comes naturally to me and it's much easier, much faster. So now at least we have the intro.
My name is Colin.
Again, I said maybe I repeated this, so I don't want it there. I'm going to simply select that part which has the second hello, and then cut it out. So we have
Hello. My name is Colin.
Actually, I don't have this. I don't want this part too. I cut it out.
Hello, my name is Collins Nwagaba. I'll be the instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here.
Okay, so let me also run through this really quick. Delete that.
My name is Collins Nwagaba. I'll be the instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here.
Okay, I'll delete that. And then I'll scroll, move on to the next part.
I'm excited to have you here. It's cold morning out here. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying introduction to machine learning.
So again, I'll get to this point. There was an unnecessary delay here. So I'll select that whole point, delete that. So if we get back here, we here.
Today we'll be studying introduction to machine learning. Thank you.
And that is it. So whatever comes after here,
then I'll click that. I'll click stop.
You can see that whatever came next was just, I think I was talking to you.
Introduction to machine learning. Thank you.
Thank you. So whatever comes after this, we can simply delete it. We don't really need it. Okay. So now we can use this, or rather, we can just simply hold Control, zoom out. If you look down here, you will see this scroll bar, the horizontal scroll bar. You can use it to scroll, through different points of the sound clip. So now we have our 12-second sound clip. So I'm imagining that this is something like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is that you're doing. So let's click
Hello,
that.
my name is Collins Nwagaba. I'll be the instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here. It's a cold morning out here. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying introduction to machine learning. Thank you.
Okay, so that is much better than the first one. So the other things you could do, there are a number of, give me just a second. There are a number of effects that you can play around with. You can always increase the loudness or reduce it. You could come here to effect, for example. If something is too loud, let me first reduce that. So one issue that you normally want to avoid is, you see, when you play the sound on the sound monitor, just pay attention to this. This is the sound monitor out here. So pay attention to it. You see how, do you notice how whenever I hit the picks here, the sound goes directly to red? So for sound monitoring, that is bad. Your sound is too loud. What you want to do is to always keep around green, yellow, avoid the reds. So in that case, for example, in this particular case, because you can see that the audio, the waveforms are too high, we are going to select all of this. We will go to effect. Then we have this loudness normalization. Okay. So you just say, just keep that at that. You could play around with these figures, but usually the default figures are going to give you at least, something standard. So at this point, now we have our normalized sound. If you play it, let me play it here. Okay, now that is much better. My speaker is a bit low, but that is much better. And from the audio monitor, at least you can even see that the sound is a bit. We're not going into the red zone. But again, now let us say you're a soft-spoken person, or maybe your audio is low. Okay, what you need to do in that case, again, you simply go to effect. You'll go to amplify. and then, preview here.
Hello, my name is Collins Nwagaba. I'll be your instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here. It's Cosmos.
Okay, I don't know if you're following. So again, I was saying you should always pay attention to the sound monitor over here. Okay, in whatever you're doing, if you're amplifying, this slider is giving you either more sound or reducing it. The higher the more you slide the slider to the right, the more decibels you get. The more to the left, the less decibels you get. So you always want to preview here and then have a listen while also observing the sound monitor. So you see, if you have it in the greens, that is good. But if, let's say, you do this,
Hello, my name is Collins Nwagaba.
and you have it in the reds, now that's not good. We're going back where we started. So at least let's keep it around 3.6 decibels. And then we'll click OK. So that's a bit better. So now we click play. Okay, so we're almost done. The other, what else can we do? So the other quick, edit you could make on this particular, on the soundtrack that you have, is sometimes you may have a time limit. So for instance, maybe the e-learning officer at your institution may say that your soundtracks must be, let's say, a maximum of 3 minutes. Okay, nothing more, nothing less. Okay, maybe less, but at least you should not exceed 3 minutes. In this case, let us say, you see this point that I'm pointing at, let us say this is a 3-minute mark. Okay, and you've just crossed it by maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, something like that. That's a very short duration. But you feel, you've optimized your data so you've cleaned up your sound clip to the best of your abilities. You've trimmed the unnecessary hums, you've removed unnecessary delays, you have cleaned up the noise, you've removed the repetitions, you've tried to do everything perfectly, but still you're exceeding the time. Okay, so in that case, what you can do, you can stretch. So you can stretch out or stretch inwards. But in this case, since we are past the limit, we want to stretch it inwards. One thing you could do, select here. Sorry. Sorry about that. So I was saying one thing you can do when you get stuck in such a situation, you'll go to Effects. Of course, this is after you've selected your sound clip. You want to go to Effect. You'll go to Pull Stretch. Okay. So now you're going to give it a stretch factor. So the higher the number, of course, the lower the stretch. So let us say we give it 1. And then you click OK. It's just slightly different. So just give me a second. I'm going to make some adjustments to the effects here. Then I'll get back to it. But for now, let's say we're now done with this, with the audio clip, with at least the voice recording. One thing that you'd want to do is to add some sort of background sound. So usually if you're just speaking nonstop for 3, 4, 5 minutes, your student's probably going to get bored, okay? So you may need something to carry them along, at least something that is going to give them a tempo or some, like I was saying earlier, you could, if you're talking about maybe nature, you could put in some nature clips, you could put in maybe birds chirping, you could put in waterfall sounds or maybe a river flowing, things like that, things to keep at least someone's brain somehow focused on what it is that you're teaching. So again, we're going to use the other technique where you find a clip somewhere in your computer, get it out, then sort of try to overlay it with what you already have, okay? So in this case, let me try to find one of the soundtracks I usually use. I don't know what I'm going to get. Let me say I get this, okay? Again, you click and drag.
Did you drag it to?
There you are. There we are.
Can you drag again, please?
Okay, let me first delete it.
Okay.
So when you go over here, I hope you see this.
No, I can't see. I don't know if when you go over where.
Let me just.
So you go to the file.
You go to the folder where you have your soundtrack.
Oh,
okay.
So you start from the file, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm imagining you've opened your folder and organized your work on your computer, and you have the soundtrack you want to use. So I'll simply pull this and dump it here, or drag it and have it there.
Okay.
Okay, when you get to that point, usually, of course, in this case, the soundtrack is much, much longer than what I have, the soundtrack I have here. And you want them to be at least the exact duration. So what you do, you select what you want. You could say, I want this part of the soundtrack. First come, have a listen to it. If it is exactly what you want, like I said before, you can now cut out everything else that you do not want. Okay? So in this case, we are going to select this, cut it out. Then maybe we're also going to select maybe all of this. And cut it out. So you remember the cutting out, you could use Ctrl+X, you could use this cut tool up here, or you could, just use delete, the delete button on your keyboard. So I'll maximize that so that we see well. So usually when you have your two files, this is what you expect to see. Normally you have one track, like when you just started editing the voice note, you have one track. But then later, as you begin in sort of adding on different layers, adding on different soundtracks and files, you're going to get multiple tracks like this. So this is the second track. In this track, you can see the name here. It's number super something. This is the sound, the background track that I want to use for this mini tutorial, this mini podcast that we are working on. So if I play it, have a listen. Hello, my name is So currently it's bad. The reason it's bad is you find that the background track is actually the same volume or even higher than the main track. So to do that, remember when we went to the amplify, we are going to select this track. Now we are going to amplify it, but this time we are going to reduce. So instead of going for the sliding to the right, we are just going to go into the negatives. So again, we'll simply go to effect. We'll go to amplify. Click that. So the first thing you want to do is click a preview. So that is too loud. I'll go slightly to the left. Play again. So that might be better. I'll click OK. So now I want to compare the two tracks together.
Hello, my name is Colin. I'll be your instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here. Good morning out here. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying introduction to machine learning. Thank you.
So I don't know if that is clear for you, but at least you can now hear that the main track is louder than the background track. So what you want to do usually for these background tracks, you want to stop here for a second. As this track is entering, you want it to slowly fade into it. Then also, as you're ending around here, when I say, thank you, you don't want the sound to abruptly stop, you want it to also smoothly fade out. So in this case, to do that, what you want to do is you're going to select this track, the track that you want to smoothly fade in and fade out. Then you'll go to effect. Then you'll go to fade, in this case, fade in. Now fade in is going, since we said it from the beginning of the track and it was already smooth, you may not necessarily have to do that. But I'm assuming that you've gotten a point in the song that you like, and that point is maybe midway somewhere. Okay, so in that case, you'd fade in. However, in this particular case, our issue is just around here, where the sound abruptly cuts. So here I say thank you, but the sound just, stops. Now in that case, let's select this. We go to effect, and then we are going to fade out instead. Okay, so instantly you can see that the waveforms here just keep on reducing until it is a line. So at this point, the decimal is just basically 0. You can't hear a thing. Now if we go back to the beginning,
Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying introduction to machine learning. Thank you.
so that is much, much better. Now, at that point, basically, you're done with now the essential. At this point, you have the basic skills to do any kind of manipulation you want. So, for example, if you had some other noises that you want to add, what you'd simply do, like I showed you earlier, is you're going to just drag, browse to on your computer or browse onto your phone, whatever it is you're using, find a sound clip that you want. So if there was some other sound clip that you wanted, you could simply click it, drag it down here. Once it is added there, let's give it let's first wait and listen and see. So in this case, this is pretty loud. Okay, so I'm going to cut this. So here I'm imagining that you want to create something that has, those African vibes to it, something that gives you that African setting kind of feeling. You have this soundtrack, so have a listen to it. Yeah. So in that case, you could say, let's say maybe after I say thank you, I want this track to play. Okay. I'll simply use this time shift tool. Okay. And then slide it slide this clip to the point that I want it. Okay. So let's say after the introduction, I want this to play. After it plays, I'm now going to bring another sound clip about maybe topic 1. I'll then, again drag the audio clip from wherever it is and then place it up here. So basically, I'm going to keep piling up different tracks and sort of aligning them and making sure that, they're all audible. So in this case, for example, I want to also reduce this. I don't want it to be so loud. So I'll go to Effect, I'll go to Amplify. That is too loud. That is good. So I say, okay. Now, if we go back and listen to the whole thing. Hello. I'm calling Nwabeba. I'll be your instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here. It's a cold morning out here. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying Introduction to Machine Learning. Thank you. And that is it. So I'm not saying you should put these random soundtracks in your work. I'm only saying that if you feel that you must add something to better explain whatever it is you're teaching, you can always add it there. Okay. So it's not that all your soundtracks must just be playing with the voice and the background sound. Sometimes you can mix it up. You can put a background sound. You can throw in a few effects here and there. Let's say you're talking about an organization setting or something. You can even get soundtracks from an office setting. You throw it there. You're talking about conflict management, maybe anger management. You can get a clip of, some angry people tossing out at each other. Get it, throw it in there. Have these simple examples. Just like you would teach in a class and then have a video play. Similarly, you can, make a sound and then add in an example of a certain situation. So what we want to do now is to export, because now we assume that we're done editing, we're done cleaning the sound. So we want to export this into an audio file. To do that, you'll go to File, Export. Now we get back to what I told you earlier before. When you're talking about the different formats, that we can use for these audio files, the MP3 or a WAV file. So like I said, it is better to use MP3 because it is a compressed format and it is much lighter than the others. So here I'll say, I'll give it a name. So in this case, we are intro to machine learning. I click save. So once you're done, that was just an error because my disk is full. But when you're done clicking the export button, it will now get you to this point where you have now to add the metadata. So metadata is important because it helps you sort of organize your work. It also helps you to quickly find your work in case you have some of these search tools. It will look at things like the track title, the album name. So you have a number of fields that you can use to quickly search for something. So in this case, the artist name could be you, the lecturer, you, the instructor, you, the teacher. In this case, I'll quickly put my name. The track title in this case could be, let's say, teaching introduction to machine learning. So the album could be Introduction to Machine Learning. And perhaps for that very first class, I was going to teach them about maybe supervised learning. I don't know. Something like that. Now, these others, of course, depending on how you organize your series, like I said, normally podcasts are soundtracks, but in a given series. So if it is a story, usually when you listen to the ones on the internet, it is a story about something. It could be an investigation, it could be a documentary, it could be, in this case, learning material. It's a series of audio files teaching you about a particular subject or topic. Now you could choose to give them, track numbers. So you could say, this is the very first one. And for the next one, you put 2, 3, 4. So that again, it is easy to organize this work in your files. This is pretty much self-explanatory. You can put that With these, you can just ignore the genre. In this case, since it's not music, you can simply ignore that. And then you'll click OK. So it will render. What you saw there was what we call rendering. That's basically just converting the project file into the audio file. So now after it's done rendering, you now want to go and find that file. And to find that file, remember the point where we clicked save, you browse to a particular folder. So I'm now going to look for the folder to which I browsed. In that case, I'll go here, which is in my referral training folder. I'll get there, and then I'm going to look out for what I gave it, which was Intro to Machine Learning. So if I play this file now, hello, my name is Colin Nwagova. I'll be your instructor for the day. I'm excited to have you here. It's cold morning out here. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying Introduction to Machine Learning. Thank you. Okay, I'll stop it right there. So basically, you can see that you now have, a basic podcast. And some of the metadata that I was talking about is, for example, here you can see the album. It's already being recognized by a VLC player. If I wanted to check and see the artist, see, it can already show that. Unfortunately, my resolution is too high. You may not be able to see this, but it can already show the name of the lecturer. It can show the album. If there was any other thing, the track number, it would also include it so that people can know at what point they are studying. And, things of the sort to help you really categorize your work and organize it better. So once you have this audio file, you can see here the type is the MP3. It was something like close to 30 seconds, but you can see the size. It's 487 kilobytes. Now, this is really, really, really light. So from this point, you can now transfer this content to your learning management system. You can share it on emails. You can upload it to your website, or share it with whoever needs it. Now, I don't know if at least some of you have tried this. Is there any point that you'd wish for me to get back to?
What if the size is big? Some of these LMS restrict the amount of the size that can actually upload. Yes. So is there a way of reducing the size? I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So normally, if you're dealing with videos, audios, yeah, at least those two. There are tools which you can use to sort of reduce the size. Among those is something we call ConverterLite. So for example, I wish I could get it. Let me get a big file to illustrate it better. So let us say this is your file, okay? It plays, so you imagine that you've worked on it properly and everything is there. But then you find that it is 80 MBs. And of course, the e-learning system is not going to allow this. I want to share a link with you from where you can get a tool called ConverterLite, okay? So once you install ConverterLite, you'll simply right-click on the file. You'll say Convert with ConverterLite. Give it some time to open. So this is not the only tool out there that can do this. There are quite a number, but usually I want to share with you open source tools. These are tools that you don't have to pay for. You simply download it and it will do the work that you need it to do. So from here, you simply click next. You want it to be a sound, so you want to keep at MP3. And then here you're going to choose the quality. Okay, so like images, like videos, the higher the quality, the higher the resolution, the heavier the file. Okay, similarly, even in sound, the higher the quality, the heavier the sound. So good usually is pretty much good enough, because this is not maybe
actually my question was, can you is it possible to convert within the Audacity?
Within Audacity?
Yeah.
No, not quite. With Audacity, the default file types you have, if I go back here, you see you have these. Okay. Now, WAV is the lossless kind, which is the much cleaner but heavier file type. MP3 is the much lighter one. Okay. But when Audacity compresses your work, compresses your sound file, it sort of gives you the highest, sort of the smallest file size that it can produce. However, there are tools out there which can reduce what has already been reduced, if that makes sense. So that's why I was showing you something which can get you to a much smaller size. So in this case, if we clicked that and clicked convert, it's going to do some conversion. After a few minutes, you'll be able to see that whatever we get is going to be much smaller. So if we check, we went from 81 kilobytes, from 81 kilobytes to just 81 MBs to just 5 MBs. Now, if you had an issue of limit via the size upload for the learning management system, I think 5 MB should be adequate. Okay, so I think unless we have any issues with this, can you go over the steps for editing and saving the metadata? Okay, let me just do that one more time. So let's say we're done with the work. What you want to do is you go to File. You'll go to you'll go to Export as MP3, which is the recommended file type. And then let's say I want it on the desktop. On the desktop, I want to create a folder. So I could say my podcasts. Okay. I open that folder. And then in here, I'll give it a name. So I'll say intro to machine learning. Just let me use abbreviations to be faster. From that point, you can ignore this, say yes. You'll get to now the metadata tags. Okay, now because I'd already filled in the tags before, they are still in the system, so it's going to just basically bring me these values because I'm still working within the same file. If at all it's the first time you're doing this, this should be empty. So once you get to this point, you want to now, let me change it. I'll say, maybe John Doe. Here I could say, instead of doing machine learning, we are going to do maybe unsupervised learning. Okay, in this case, maybe the introduction, the album title is the same, but we're now going to another class, which would be track number 2. So once you're done with these, once you're done with filling in each of these, at least the first 5 metadata tags should be filled. Once you're done with that, we'll simply click OK. You see what it just did there? It was rendering. And now we want to look out for that file. So we know we saved it on the desktop. I'm simply going to go over here to my file explorer. I will go to the desktop over there. I will scroll, look out for a folder that I just created. And that folder was called My Podcasts. So if I go over here, I can see it. I click My Podcasts. And then right inside there, I will find the file that I've just exported. So if I click the file, it opens. Welcome to my class. Today we'll be studying Introduction to Machine Learning. Okay. So that basically explains, I think that is it to, at least regarding to the podcasts. I don't know if you have any other questions. We've gone through how to acquire the audio, how to drag the file clips there, how to, let's say, import the audio into the software in case we're using another soundtrack. We've looked at how to remove noise. We've looked at how to trim the clips. We've looked at how to, fade in and out the background sounds. We've looked at how to amplify the sounds, reduce the sounds. We've also looked at a few effects here and there. And then finally, how to export and also include the metadata into the files. So I don't know if you had any issues with the installation. I don't know if you've understood everything here. Can we move on? Can we give it a rest and then come back for the evening session?
Thank you, Mr. Collins, for this wonderful session. I think it's coming, it's already lunchtime. Martin, are you on call?
Yes, that's fine. So we can go for lunch and then we resume at 2 p.m. exactly.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you. Maybe before we leave, someone has a hand up. Bernadette, after Bernadette's hand, then you can break off for lunch. How about that? Amitu, please guide.
That's fine. That's fine.
Thank you, sir.
So Bernadette, go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, he has dropped his hand. So basically, that means we can now go for lunch. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, too. We meet at 2. Thank you.
All right.